Welcome into the Blurred Wire. I wanted to start kind of a new series and talk about something a little bit different. Because I just saw Deadpool and Wolverine, as did my brother, who's joining me as the co-host today. Say hello to the people, Alex.
What's up, gamers? I'm Alex. I am Blurred Jr.
Blurred Jr. Yeah, so it's really cool that I get to do this with my brother right now. Like,
Whoa.
if you told like a younger version of me, this is like a dream come true. So we decided to hop on just because Deadpool and Wolverine obviously was hilarious. It rightfully made $1 billion at the box office, doing all the right things.
It was a good
And we've got
time.
a
It was a good time. It was a good
yeah, it
time.
was a good time. It was a good time. And we've got a long time until the next Marvel movie. We've got like, what is it, February was when the next one's coming out. So like over 7 months or something like that. So, and it kind of got me thinking of like how the multiverse saga could have been, how it could have worked if Marvel was like a little bit more cohesive. Because as great
They,
as Deadpool and Wolverine was, it didn't really connect to the overall narrative as much as a lot of people thought it was going to.
yeah, and I've been telling because you've been kind of going a little crazy about this, but I've been saying that the movies now work a lot better when you kind of treat them as this is just a one-off. This clearly because people have been talking about the what's it called, the anchor beings. Anchor beings are going to go crazy. It's like it's
Mm-hmm.
probably not going to ever have anything to do with anything ever again. It's just a one-off thing that they did for this movie. But I know you were saying that you wished it was more connected, but
I mean, if they were going to use anchor beings, I'm glad that it's more of a one-off because I don't want the idea of anchor beings to go into any other Marvel movies with stakes or anything like that.
yeah,
But you're right. I think they're treating a lot of these projects as one-offs when it used to be like the projects would build to a whole nother story. Like Winter Soldier, Captain America Winter Soldier was a fantastic movie in its own right. But not only did it build off of what happened, it built on what was coming next. And that's the kind of thing that Marvel, it feels like they're not really trying to do with the multiverse saga. So we're taking a look, and some people like it, some people don't. It just kind of depends. So we're taking a look at what it kind of would be like if they kind of kept that cohesion for the full multiverse saga. If that's what we got throughout the entire thing, where not necessarily each project connected to another one, but where they were building an overarching story where we felt like we were going somewhere. Because for a long time, it's like, where are we going? And even back when it was, phase one, two, and three in the Infinity Saga, even if we didn't know where we were going, we knew we were going somewhere. But now, like I said, with Robert Downey Jr. coming in as Doctor Doom, it really kind of feels like when they released a movie like Black Widow, like it feels like they didn't have a plan at all for how the multiverse saga was going to go. It feels like they're like, we have all these cool ideas for some stories. We're just going to put them out and then figure it out at the end.
which is the
Yeah.
the Disney trilogy, what's a Star Wars trilogy version of
Oh, God.
storytelling, and it doesn't
Exactly.
plan a story. Is that too hard to ask? Plan a full
Right.
story
And you
before
don't
you make
have
a big
to,
project.
and that's what's very interesting about us doing this together, because you don't have to plan every single minute detail. Because sometimes that's what I'll do. Like if I'm writing out a story, I'll try to
Right.
plan each detail out but just
Just
something
as
so that we know what's
well,
happening.
because that's literally what they used to do, where like you have Kevin Feige was the Jesus of Marvel. Not Jesus.
The head
I need a
honcho, I mean,
overlord. Yeah,
architect.
the big dog. And
Yeah.
he had an overarching idea, but all the details you can give it to all the directors. They have to
Hmm.
follow this overarching plot, but they can have fun with their details. But nowadays it seems like, let's make a movie. I'll
Exactly.
figure it out.
Like
Yeah.
at the end, Kevin Feige would be something like, okay, Winter Soldier, I need it to end with Bucky alive, Shield destroyed. Everything else you kind of can, take your own reins on how you're going to do individual things.
Yeah.
But at the end of this movie, Shield is no more, and the Winter Soldier just kind of goes off on his own. And that's how everything else built off of that. So without further ado, we're gonna try to do this like kind of weekly, maybe semi-weekly, maybe every 10 days or so. But we're gonna incorporate some of the shows too. So right now we're gonna start with
The
Black Widow,
shows.
which was the first movie of the multiverse saga. And like I said, we're probably gonna try to do like a movie and a show. And for the most part, it's going to be kind of the projects that they already announced, how we would have made them more cohesive, just like what it could have been, like fixing the multiverse saga basically. And then as we keep going, you'll see kind of projects that we would have really wanted to see. Um
And just so that people understand, so this is kind of why we work well together because, like you were saying, how you have an overarching story and then like you have those details. I think you're a bit better at the overarching story, and I'm a bit better at those details. So I'll be getting
exactly.
into. So basically, you have an idea, and I'm going to try to just like fine tune it. of it.
And that's how we do it.
That's how we
And
do it.
so we'll go ahead and dive into Black Widow. Without further ado, we're going to talk about Black Widow. So first of all, just as a very just as like a precursor, I guess to say, if I was Kevin Feige, right, and I knew after Endgame I want to start the Multiverse Saga. They didn't even name it the Multiverse Saga, I think, until we were like 4 or 5 movies in.
Spider-Man is the one who really made that a thing, right?
No Way Home, was that when he named it the Multiverse Saga?
I mean, that's the first multiverse kind of movie, I think.
Okay. I know it took a long time for the Multiverse Saga name to even come out. And again, I don't think we called it the Infinity Saga at first, but if I knew I'm going to the multiverse, right? And I want to bring in Kang the Conqueror, if I'm doing that and Kang is going to be part of my storyline and I want to go multiverse and I know I'm going to have a movie called Secret Wars eventually, the first movie I'm doing, because Disney bought 20th Century Fox in 2017, completed it in 2019. Like when the deal was done, now we can use um, Fox. Fox characters and things.
Yep, yep, yep,
The first thing I'm doing is a Fantastic Four movie because to me they would be the anchors for my entire multiverse saga.
yep.
So with this one, we're still gonna do one. It's just not gonna be the first one. We're gonna do Black Widow, but I just wanted to preface that by like the first movie I would do, like it would almost start and end with the Fantastic Four. So in this one, it still comes out a lot earlier than 2024 because it got pushed back. Like, no, it's coming out in 2025, and it got pushed back. Like,
Yeah, and like I was saying, I like that too because it gives a fresh idea to this new universe because
mhm.
we've seen so much Avengers, and I think they kind of fell apart after Endgame anyway. So having the FF as like the start and the end gives a new fresh face to like you said anchor this whole new saga.
And you can use those characters, like if you'd introduced them early, you could use them interacting in different movies and different shows and things throughout the entire saga, which again, we'll see as we keep going through this. But just for the sake of what ended up happening, we're going to start with Black Widow as the kickoff for the multiverse saga. Because overall, like it didn't have that much of an impact on the story of the multiverse saga other
Yeah.
than introducing Yelena. It kind of feels like it kind of feels like almost a love letter to Scarlett Johansson and everything she's done as Black Widow. Like, because she did such a great job, where it feels like they're just kind of like rewarding her with her own movie rather than creating something that's going to impact the entire universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, don't get me
Another one of
wrong,
those kind of one-off stories.
exactly. Kind of a one-off story. And don't get me wrong, I think she's completely deserving of it. And that's partially why I'm like, I didn't just cut the movie. I still think that like it deserves to happen, especially because Florence Pugh was absolutely amazing as Yelena. Um, and so for this movie, I wouldn't change a whole lot to make it connect more to the larger multiverse saga. I think there's a lot of room here for it to work. I think the main thing I would change, because if we the way the Black Widow plot, obviously goes out, is it's set during the events of Civil War when Natasha's on the run after she betrays Tony and the team and lets Black Panther go, and stops Black Panther from getting to Bucky. And so the movie opens with Ross trying to find her, and then she gets a package from her sister Yelena, and then she meets up with her, and then Yelena is basically like, "Hey, the Red Room, which is the room that Black Widow was trained and raised in to be a assassin, mind controlled assassin."
Yep.
She's like, "It still exists," and Natasha's like, "What are you talking about? I destroyed it. I killed Dreykov." And Yelena's like, "Did you find a body?" And she was like, "Oh, no." So throughout the entire movie, the Red Room is still operating and they're trying to find Natasha. And that's pretty much the same plot that would be going on in this version. Um, the main difference is so throughout the movie, we wouldn't know if Dreykov is alive or dead. And of course, Natasha would reveal that, like, I had to kill his daughter too because she was just collateral damage. She was in the building
Yep.
at the time. And this is our only time to take out Dreykov, which I
You
do
gotta
really
do what you
like
gotta
that
do.
storyline.
Yeah, it
Exactly.
gives them emotional depth to the character.
And like kind of a line that I didn't realize. I don't know if I realized it until after Black Widow, but like Loki directly referenced it in Avengers. And he said like Dreykov's daughter as one of the
Yeah,
things that like Black Widow
yeah,
should
and
regret.
also you could think of those callbacks as someone that's that cohesion I would like to see, like someone who watched Avengers, saw that scene and said, "Oh, I can probably incorporate this into the Black Widow movie."
Mhm.
You know, the Dreykov's daughter there.
Exactly. And I think that's why I think it's important. I think that's the best part of the movie, really, the best storyline. The fact that in order to kill this terrible man who was carrying out assassins, Natasha had to kill his daughter, right? A girl who had essentially done nothing but be born to a terrible guy.
The Dreykovs.
So I think that's the most important. Like I would kind of make that the most important part of the storyline. Um, because after so Natasha and Yelena would go and free Red Guardian to try to help them track down the Red Room, and eventually they would discover, it's this flying fortress up in the sky. And then when they discover them, when they finally get into the fortress and they invade, Natasha would find out, and this is where it would be different and the big twist in the movie would happen.
Yep.
Dreykov did die, right, in that explosion, but his
Yep.
daughter survived.
And she's just been kind of running his organization. And when people say, "Hey, we want to see Dreykov," she's like, "He's in his room. He's busy. He's hurt from the explosion. I got you." You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And again, that kind of goes to that idea of no, we're trying to shave off like no wasted space, no wasted characters.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really need this one off of Dreykov who comes in and then he's gone immediately. So instead, let's give that responsibility almost to Taskmaster, who can keep, who's going to stay within the story for a few more movies or shows or whatever.
Exactly. And because Taskmaster is and like I still like the idea of a gender blended Taskmaster because like in the comics it's a man obviously, but in the movie they chose to make it a woman, and I think that still works really well, and I think that works really well for it to be Dreykov's daughter who becomes Taskmaster. But because she was 7 and essentially got blown up by an international spy, that kind of warped her view on like life
Yeah.
in the world.
But
So
also a nice thing too is if you take out Dreykov, takes out the kind of the worst part of the Taskmaster because he made her like a mindless robot. She can have emotions and be an actual character.
exactly. Exactly. And so I know they say that like he did the Taskmaster robot protocol to save her life. Because like a building falling on you can kind of kill you usually. But I would just say that she escaped. Like while the building was
Yeah,
falling, she was able to crawl out. She's smaller. I mean,
Natasha
she's a
wasn't
little
aiming for
girl.
her, so
Yeah, exactly. It would have been
fine.
fine. Dreykov. So I would have had Dreykov died in that. And after I can't even remember her name in the movie. I think it was Olga. Was it Olga
What the
or
daughter's name?
yeah, the daughter's name.
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
This
anyway,
goes to the fact
basically,
that they didn't make her a proper character, so no one learned
right,
her name.
right. So basically, she would grow up, and so the Red Room's been destroyed. All the widows have been free because they killed Dreykov. She would grow up, discover the same formula that her father used to control these widows, and then she would have rebuilt the Red Room, which again kind of makes more sense because Dreykov's like, I've been doing this for like decades with the Red Room, but like he hasn't, like nothing has really happened in the Marvel
Yeah, he's
universe.
like, I can overthrow countries. Okay, well, I haven't seen a single country that says Dreykov land. So
Right. Right. So this would be like, maybe 3 years after Taskmaster has rebuilt the Red Room, got the widows, got them under control, and doing like smaller things. So you still got to build up like an international terrorist organization. But it would explain why it kind of went away and came back essentially.
it's coming
Because
back.
like not to like pivot to Shang-Chi, but Shang-Chi kind of explained that because when the father had kids, he stopped being the Mandarin. So stopped being the leader of the Ten Rings. And so the organization kind of fell apart over that time. So in that same way, we see why the Red Room like fell apart because it did when Dreykov died. But after Taskmaster grew up, she decided to
Growed
bring
up.
it back. It
My girl done
happens.
growed up.
Girl that grew up, she grew up.
Yeah. And then and also you could even make it that the reason why Yelena escaped was because like it was the early days of Taskmaster starting her program and she's not perfect at it.
Mhm.
And then that's another reason why they were able to get in during the early days where it's still not too super crazy as an organization.
Right. And again, she's for the whole movie, she's pretty much pretending that Dreykov is alive and running
Yeah.
it. And so, like in the movie, we could see Taskmaster pursuing Yelena and Natasha. And Natasha would be like, who's this person? And Yelena would be like, oh, that's Taskmaster. It's Dreykov's latest project. Because again, she still thinks Dreykov is alive. And the big twist would be Taskmaster grew up and kind of hates Natasha for, like dropping a building on her head.
And killing her
And
daddy.
right. And she wants to control the world through espionage, just like her daddy did. So,
Yep, yep.
that's what she's doing. And so the mostly of the plot of the movie kind of stays the same. It's just kind of instead of having Dreykov be like the main villain, and then Taskmaster's like his side character almost. We're just kind of shifting it to where Taskmaster is the main villain, the only villain, and that's the one that they have to defeat.
Yep, yep.
So the plot would still work the same way. The Red Room gets blown up, everyone's falling out of the sky and fighting. But this time for the end fight scene, of course, it's got to be Natasha and Yelena defeating Taskmaster. Like they both have to fight her and work together. And that can be kind of a running theme throughout the movie. They can talk about how much better they would be if they worked together, because like at the beginning of the movie, they're
Yeah.
fighting and they're used to fighting alone. But in order to defeat Taskmaster, they realize they have to fight
I
together,
together.
which again, is kind of cheesy, but it's true because Taskmaster is photokinetic. And again, I much prefer the comic idea where Taskmaster is naturally photokinetic, like how some people are what's the word? Where you can see things and just remember it.
Oh, I
Photo
know what you're talking about. It's not
photogenic
telepatonic.
memory. Yes. Yes, photogenic memory. So like Doctor Strange has that, and he reveals that in Doctor Strange. And so I think in this movie they should just have that Taskmaster happens to be photokinetic, where she can remember the fighting style of anyone that she fights. Again, in Black Widow, that was like programmed into her. And I'm sorry, I hated that. Hated because Taskmaster is his own character in the comics, and he has his own autonomy and his own
How
things.
does he get his powers in the comics?
So in the comics, he's born as a photokinetic. Like that's just his power. He can see
Oh,
something and copy
but
it
like,
exactly.
what? He is he like a mutant or just it's not
Nope,
that
just
crazy?
it's not a mutant. He's just photokinetic. Like the same way someone
Oh,
that's photogenetic
okay,
can
that's
not
fine.
photogenetic, genetic,
Photogenic.
photogenic. Yeah, like really good at taking pictures.
All
No,
of
no, like a photographic memory.
here you
That's the
go.
word I was thinking of. Photographic
Photographic
memory. Yeah,
memory.
you know how
Yeah.
you can see something and just remember it, like Mike from Suits or Doctor Strange. So in this case, Taskmaster can see any action and just instantly replicate it and remember it.
Okay. Yeah.
And it becomes really crazy when you have a world of superheroes with a bunch of martial arts styles
And
because
you can copy
Taskmaster
them.
can literally
Yeah.
copy every single one. So the way that this one will work, again, Yelena and Natasha would be fighting Taskmaster, and Taskmaster would be defeating them until they start to work together. Then they start to kind of get the upper hand. But again, the way that Black Widow ended with all those cars coming in to arrest Natasha, that can be the same way that this movie ended. And instead, Taskmaster sees that and just escapes
And
because
that's how she. Yeah.
Taskmaster obviously doesn't want to get arrested. And that's how we keep the character kind of on their own devices, right? And then Natasha and Yelena would obviously escape as well until we see Yelena a little bit later. Um, and I would still go with that same end credit scene of Contessa trying to hire Yelena to kill Clint Barton. I think the end credit scene still kind of works. It will kind of we'll kind of go into Falcon and the Winter Soldier a little bit later to see like how that impacts it because
Yeah.
that obviously it would have to come before that. He's not so excited about it.
Yeah.
The thing is, once you watch the trailer for, you haven't seen the trailer for Captain America: Brave New.
No. Yeah. And I guess it's good. It's just Falcon and Winter Soldier is like why did we make this movie
Yeah, that's what
show?
it. Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. It kind of
Yeah.
feels like Captain America: Brave New World should have been Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like we should just skip straight to that. But
Yeah.
anyway, this is where we're at. So anyway, that's basically what we would do with Black Widow.
Yeah.
Again, essentially the same plot. Main difference is Taskmaster is the villain. Dreykov did die. Taskmaster took over running the Red Room, and at the end of the movie, the Red Room does get destroyed again, but Taskmaster is able to escape, and we'll kind of see them later on.
And
Um,
again, yeah, just shaving off some of the stuff that like the extra fluff that you don't really need in the story.
yeah, because I don't really think we need to see Dreykov again, and he's not an
And
interesting
he's
villain.
not coming back. Yeah, nobody cares about him, and he's not coming
Mhm.
back. But it gives Taskmaster a bit more oh, I lost the word.
Autonomy, you could say,
Autonomy.
storyline
Yeah.
depth. Yeah. Yeah.
All of
It
those things.
actually makes
Yeah.
them a character, right? Like, I feel like Taskmaster in Black Widow was more of a device,
It's nothing.
was a
It
character.
could have been a robot and it would have been the same thing.
Exactly. And also, and I love that personal touch because the fact that Natasha killed her father and dropped a building on her would give Taskmaster a very personal, like, reason to not like Natasha. Like
Yeah.
it would make that fight even more intense and even more like brutal because it would be like you did just you did kill my father and you tried to kill me when I was 7, right? And so like to me that's almost like
Yeah.
even more of a relatable villain because it was like Tasha can be like, I can't believe you became this. And she's like, you dropped a building on my head when I was 7. What did you think I would become? You know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
can have those kind of dialogues and things that would build it up. So I think Black Widow would have been much better, and it would have aided a lot more connection into the universe if Taskmaster was the main villain and they left that kind of
The only issue
there.
that comes up is, I mean, but of course, this is just a marvel of how they structured it. Like, why didn't, because if it happens during Civil War, then what was Taskmaster doing up until present day? But I don't know what you can do about that.
I mean, you can say that Taskmaster got blipped. I think that's the easiest way
No.
because Civil War happens two
Oh
years
yeah, and
before
then the
Infinity
blip
War.
happens right away. Okay, yeah.
Right. So let's just say Taskmaster got snapped away. We probably won't find out more until later on. But like I said, 2 years after the Red Room gets destroyed, that's not really enough time for them to try to build it back up again.
Yeah, do anything too crazy.
Yeah, and especially with this again, the Sokovia Accords are in effect too right now. So the government's really cracking down on things. So it's kind of understandable that they would maybe lay low and then they just like are dust one day. So you could give that explanation. If we see Taskmaster again, we probably would say that like she would drop some line about being dusted. So yeah, this would, and the main way this would be different too is because Taskmaster is supposed to show up in Thunderbolts as one of the characters. And in this one, we're keeping Taskmaster as a villain rather than as a like anti-hero to put into Thunderbolts. So it'll still impact that storyline. So you'll have to keep following the series to see how that exactly plays out.
Yeah.
But again, that's the main difference. Taskmaster is a villain who pretty much only cares about themselves, which again, I feel like is understandable if you've had a building drop on your head as a child.
And your father. I feel like you keep going into the building thing and not the father murder.
The father
That's
being a
probably
murderer too. Yeah,
bigger.
yeah. No, that is understandable. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So,
And like,
yeah.
yeah, so, some of these will just be kind of rewrites, but
Hmm.
some of them will be like completely new stories as you try to build
Exactly.
to a proper conclusion, you know.
Yeah, because like I said, I think the plot of Black Widow still like
It's
work.
fine.
It's just a couple of. It's really
Inoffensive.
just characters. It's really just a change of
Yeah.
characters. The rest of the plot still kind of works out the same way. So some of the
Also,
movies. Go
also
ahead.
maybe fix the CGI because that scene where like Yelena stabs the engine and
Yeah, that
she's
didn't really
it's like,
work that well.
whoa, that was
Yeah,
weird.
that didn't really work that well.
That
Yeah.
was weird.
Yeah, so some of these will pretty much just be like rehashing the exact same story, or some of them we think perfectly connected to the rest of the MCU,
Yeah,
and
that's
you'll just
fine.
see us like gushing over how great it was. But again, for Black Widow, for starting this out, main difference is Taskmaster is the villain, and then we'll kind of see where everything kind of goes from there. So let us know your thoughts if you think that this makes sense, if you think that it's stupid, whatever it is, let us know in the comments, and we'll see you guys next time.
Have a good one.